Hello, it's Bernadette Joy. We are here at TravelCon, and I just came out of an amazing keynote talk, and he is going to introduce himself here.
Hi, my name is Patt Flynn. I've been an entrepreneur for over 15 years, and I've started multiple businesses, CEO of several companies, and I like to say, Pat of all trades, master of fun.
Pat of all trades. I love that. And some of you know that I am well involved in the FinCon community, and Pat was the first closing keynote in FinCon like 15 years ago?
Yes, 2011, the founder asked me for a favor to come and speak. I'd never spoken before. I wanted to throw up right before, and I got through it, and I've since been on 340 some odd stages since then. So I owe a lot to the FinCon community and everybody there who supported me right from the start.
And I love this because he's going to be speaking at FinCon later this year, and he's here at TravelCon, and he has a new book coming out. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book?
Yes, so the book is called Lean Learning, How to Achieve More by Learning Less, which sounds counterintuitive, but what's interesting is we live in a world now where we don't have to worry about getting access to information. Back in the day, information was scarce, right? If you had an Encyclopedia Britannica, you were wealthy, right? You were seen as wealthier because you had access to information that other people didn't. Now it's just in our phones. Everybody has access to it. So that's not what's important anymore. What's important is how do we navigate through all the noise? How do we stay focused? How do we learn less so that we can actually progress more? And a lot of it involves things that I teach, getting just-in-time information versus just-in-case information. We're almost programmed to hoard.
Yes.
And that's not the way to succeed today. We get confused, we get overwhelmed, and this is a book that I wrote to combat that for all of you who are building new things or want to try new things. And I honestly wrote it for my kids who are entering their teens and entering a world that's far different than the one I entered in as a teen.
Which, by the way, I love seeing all your examples of having your kids like being part of this journey as well. And you also have a channel that's about something unrelated to finance and all of this. What is that?
So I have a Pokemon YouTube channel. If you've ever seen the shorts that have come across your feed called Should I Open It or Should I Keep It Sealed? That's me. But I have another channel on YouTube called Deep Pocket Monster where we do challenges and stories. And in 4 years, we've gotten to 1.5 million subscribers and hundreds of millions of views. But I also run a live event where thousands of people come in the Pokemon collector space to hang out, build community, and just enjoy Pokemon. I'm a grown man playing with cardboard with cartoons on it, and I absolutely love it.
Okay, so aside from the fact he's a grown man playing with these cartoon cards, he is also an advisor to several companies. He has founded several companies as well. And in your talk, I found it really helpful for me. I'm actually starting my angel investing journey this year. And so you talked a lot about being able to find the time to do these things and also like how to know where to start. And so you came up with really good tips, and I wanted to go through them to see if you could elaborate more. So the first one that I really loved, I actually talk about it in my courses. It's a spin on the Pareto principle in some regard of the 20% of time. I like that you call it the 20% itch rule.
Yes, it's called the 20% itch rule because I was once taught do one thing and one thing only. And that's really hard to do when you're getting inspired by all these different directions and you're just a creative person and you want to try different things. If you only do one thing, you're almost feeling unfulfilled. But how do we add other things on top of that without getting overwhelmed or confused or removing ourselves from the commitments we've already made? So I have this thing called the 20% itch rule, and essentially you allow 20% of your time to scratch that itch. The other 80%, you make sure you're still following through on the commitments that you've made, the things you've already said yes to, but having a contained amount of time to play, to experiment, to try something new. You never know what could happen, and you scratch that itch and feel like there's something interesting and new always happening amongst all the sort of day-to-day stuff that you're normally doing anyway. And this is when in 2017 to 2019, I invented a tripod with my co-founder, Caleb, called the Switch Pod. And we've never invented anything before, but using a lot of the strategies I talk about in the book and 20% of my time, we were able to launch this thing to over 4,000 people and almost $500,000 on Kickstarter in 60 days in 2019. Recently, my 20% thing has been the Pokemon thing. I'm walking the walk.
Okay, I'm curious to follow up on that. Is that the Switch Pod thing was a 20% thing, and now is it part of? Do you consider it part of your 80%? And what about the Pokemon thing?
One thing I teach in a more advanced level is these things that you build, you can eventually automate. So I hardly spend any time on the Switch Pod anymore because it's built systems to just fulfill itself using third-party logistics, and Amazon is doing most of the selling for us. So I got my time back to put into something else and just stacking that revenue, stacking that business on top of everything else.
Okay, so then I have to ask, so what's in your 20% time now?
I am finding pockets of things in the Pokemon space because I love it so much. It's bringing my kids and I together and the community together. So I'm running live events now. That's the thing I'm experimenting with. Yes, so we have an event called Card Party that we've been doing for the last couple of years. We are expected to have about 5,000 people show up in Tampa this year in June and another 5,000 in October in Seattle. And live events is something that I'm not known for or I have done in the past, and I'm learning as I go, like I said.
Oh my God, you just got me so many brownie points with my nephew. I think we're going to have to take him to one of these. He loves Pokemon cards. And congratulations on doing that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so the next thing that you talked about, which I absolutely loved because it was just so succinctly said, which was just in time versus just in case. And I personally have seen a lot of people doing the just in case piece. So can you explain the difference?
So I used to be subscribed to 40 podcast shows.
Oh my God.
And then I wouldn't have time for anything else. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like I needed to hoard all that information or else I might miss something. But then I have no time for the next thing and I only apply a small percentage of it. It's the same thing as reading a book, forgetting about most of what you've read and then applying like the one thing. What if you instead read your book like this? You read chapter 1, then you apply those things. And then you read chapter 2, and then you apply those things. So this is the difference, again, between just in case information, which is, in my opinion, a waste of time and resources and energy, and just in time information, which is learning only what you need to know about taking that next step so you can do it well and do it efficiently. Who knows where it's going to take you? You have a North Star. Oftentimes business plans are just best guesses, and you'll learn more as you go and as you do. So this really allows a person to have more time to do the doing versus the learning, right?
I love that. Okay, so next one. I wasn't able to write down the acronym because I was just like, I think I was
a lot of letters.
It was a lot of letters. So what's this acronym that spelled out this one question?
So I learned this from Tim Ferriss, who helped me as a person who wants to try a bunch of things and doesn't know exactly where to begin all the time. And the acronym is IT, we, will. But that stands for, if this were easy, what would it look like? And this is a question that I always ask myself when I'm trying something new or experimenting with something, because oftentimes I found that we always overcomplicate things. We always think things need to be more complicated than they can actually be. So if you were to actually distill the next actions into, okay, if this were easy, what would it look like? You're more likely to get started. I did this in, for example, 2020, when everybody was hunkered down at home. I wanted to do live streaming. So I was like, okay, I was thinking about all the most important equipment to buy and the set that I was going to create, and I was just going overboard, and I said, okay, forget it. If this were easy, what would it look like? I would just sit down, turn the camera on that I already have set up, and I would just hit publish and go live. And that's exactly what I did. Each day I learned how to get better and better, so much so now that I've gone live over 2,000 times. I go live in front of 10,000 people every single week on my Pokemon channel, and it's become second nature because I just got to that starting point much faster.
I love that because a lot of us think that overcomplicating the process will make us look smarter, will make us look like we know what we're doing. And I have had to coach so many people who are trying to do like the more difficult thing. I'll give you a prime example. Yesterday, I have a bookkeeping client. Her business is bookkeeping. And she was like, oh, I need to make this lead magnet, so I have to find a landing page. I have to do all this other stuff. I'm like, girl, just put it on Canva and then just take the link from Canva and then just put it in the email sequence you already have. And she's like, oh, that makes so much sense. I'm so glad that you said that because a lot of us are overcomplicating. All right, 2 more questions is, by the way, you have a really great way of just naming these things to be very sticky.
I teach a lot of creators, and one thing that I've learned is that you can build authority, and you have the authority to just create things and call them your own. This information I'm sharing isn't really new, but because I've packaged it differently,
right.
Like you said, it's shareable, it's memorable. A tool, like I use AI to help me come up with 50 ideas for different frameworks that I have, and I find the one that I like and I go with it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but like you said, the 20% itch rule and these acronyms, this all plays a role in how you show up and wrap that information that is freely available into something that's more shareable, more recognizable, more tied to you and your brand.
I love that. So on that note, you talked about this concept of micromastery.
Yes.
Which I thought was brilliant. I'm definitely going to be sharing this with a lot of my clients as well. So what is Micromastery? What is up, y'all? I am Bernadette Joy, your money mentor and the founder and author of Crush Your Money Goals. And if you are here, it's probably because you are tired of being burned out and stressed out by your money situation, whether it is not having enough savings, not getting paid enough, not having enough in retirement. And so if you are tired of being tired, you're in the right place because I created a new resource guide for you in 2025. It's absolutely free, and you can go in there and find all the 25 different tools and resources. And you can find videos to watch, books to read, podcasts to listen to, articles, and so much more to help you on your money journey so you can stop being so stressed out and enjoy life instead. If you want to learn more, you can go ahead and sign up in the links on this page, and you'll immediately get access to the free guide so that you can start your money journey today.
I had a friend who was into running, and he demonstrated Micromastery to me in the best way, meaning he ran every day, he was trying to get faster and faster, but he would take a couple weeks at a time to focus on one element of the running that he was doing. So for example, he'd take a 2-week period and just focus just on his breathing. He would still run every day, but he would really consciously think about, how do I breathe better? And just focus on that micro part of that, such that it becomes second nature once he masters that, and then he can move on to the next thing. Okay, next 2 weeks I'm going to focus on my stride. Next, I'm going to focus on my hands. I did the same thing when I got on stage as a introvert, deathly afraid of getting in front of anybody when I was learning public speaking. I did the same thing. I wanted to do great presentations, but I would enter one thinking about, okay, what do I do with my hands this time? And I'm going to learn from just all the TED Talks and everything else that's out there, again, because the resources are freely available, but just focusing on the one thing that I want to get good at today about this. And then, of course, that stacks, then it gets better, and then you can try the next thing. I do this in my business. We micromaster things like our funnels. Okay, cool. There's people come into the website, they come out with a product, but let's focus on how many people open the emails and just getting best at subject line creation and master that. And when we've done that, it's trickled into all other parts of our business because we've hyper-focused on something, learn how to do it best, and then move on to the next.
I really love everything that you said, because everything that you said applies so much to a lot of the challenges I hear people talking about now. Literally this past week, I've probably had to field a dozen different clients who are just like, what am I doing? The stock market is crashing, and like the economy is going crazy, and politics this and all that stuff. And everything that you mentioned are things that are 100% within your control. And so for people who are feeling the world is chaotic and I'm finding it really hard to start here, out of all of these different things, you mentioned two things that I really loved at the end, which was how to learn new things fast and how to tell a great story.
Yep.
And so what would you recommend to people now if they're being inundated with all this other information on how to learn things fast without getting that overwhelm?
Yes, Bernadette, thank you so much for asking this, and for, of course, allowing me to mention my book. I'm so grateful for that. This is from another question from another mentor, Michael Hyatt of mine. In times of distress, in times that are hard, this is like during the pandemic and even now for a lot of people, what does this make possible?
Ooh.
That is the guiding light, because oftentimes you'll see during downtimes in the economy, that's when new businesses come up. And it is those who saw these things as opportunities versus inconveniences. When I took my son to a talk that I did in Philadelphia in 2015, we were on the plane and midnight hit, and then we were no longer allowed to take off. Everybody on the plane started complaining. And my son was there next to me, and I said, okay, how am I going to react? Am I going to complain just like everybody else? I said, no. What does this make possible? We had an extra day in Philly, and what we did was we filmed ourselves dancing at all the different landmarks in Philadelphia, just so we can have that day and remember, because we went in for the event and then left, but then we had an extra day to actually enjoy Philadelphia. So that's what we did. We went to the Liberty Bell, the museums, etc. We went viral.
Wow!
In Philadelphia. And we have this video and memory that we have, but that story captured attention because instead of reacting and getting mad at the plane for not taking off in time, we created something out of that. And I think through all the turmoil and all the hardships, when you think about what does this make possible, that can guide you into what you should learn next, what you can do next, and perhaps land in a place that you never knew was possible.
I love this so much. And if people want to learn more about your book and what you do, where can they find you?
Thank you so much. So leanlearningbook.com. Again, lean learning, how to achieve more by learning less. This is, in my opinion, so needed right now with the way education is and with where AI is and how everything is being streamlined and how noisy the world is with information. We need to learn how to navigate that. leanlearningbook.com.
I love it. And then for those of you who are also fellow FinConners, stay tuned. This was your 394?
349.
Oh, 349. Okay, so by FinCon, he'll have a couple more speaking gigs under your belt, I assume. And so if you are watching this and you haven't already bought your ticket to FinCon, please go and do that because you will see him there. And thank you so much for listening, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.